Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 3 of my season 3 tier list. This time we're going over the tanks for the game for Overwatch 2. If you'd like to check out my DPS and support tier list, go ahead and check out my last couple of videos. For context, if you don't know, I am a GrandMaster support player, so a lot of these takes I'm coming from my point of view as a support from the gameplay I see. More often than not, you kind of can still tell how good other characters are from any given role just from playing within your own rank. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. For the record, I am, just like my other two tier lists, I am ranking these heroes based on us under the assumption that you're playing them with more or less the right type of play style, with that in mind. And also, I should add that every single tank or character in the game, I should say, is playable at the moment. There's not really any characters in the game I would say are throw picks, if that makes sense. Every single character is playable. Some are just more reliable than others is all. But you can get value on all characters if you know what you're doing. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and get started with the tier list. This will be one of the shorter videos among the tier list just because there's less tanks compared to like DPS. Anyways, I'm going to say it right now. Actually, no, never mind. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to put Reinhardt. Reinhardt is a solid pick right now. Yeah, Reinhardt's just really good at the moment. You can't go wrong playing Reinhardt. Even in the higher ranks in my GM games, Reinhardt is still a solid pick. Like, I can't complain when I have a Reinhardt on my team. I would say the only thing that he suffers from a little bit at the moment is that a good portion of maps in the map pool for season 3 are long sight lines, so he can sometimes struggle on those maps unless you have a Lucio to help close the gap a little bit, or even maybe like a Symmetra to close the gap a little bit. But he's still pretty solid in a lot of situations. With that being said, I'm gonna put Sigma also in the solid category. I can't speak today. Exactly for that reason, because he thrives. Sigma is like the opposite of Reinhardt. Reinhardt wants to be close quarters and brawly, so he thrives on maps like control points and certain hybrid and escort maps because of all the corners and such. Sigma does really well on the long sightline maps. So think like Havana, Circuit Royale, Junkertown, like those type of maps. Just give me. He's wherever Ryan can kind of suffer from, you can pick Sigma and end up making up for that weakness. So these are probably the two most reliable tanks at the moment, to cover all your bases for pretty much almost every majority of the maps in the map pool at the moment. Both solid. Can't really complain. Winston, I'm putting Winston in the yeah, Winston's gonna be I'm rating all the shield here, all the shield tanks first, and then we're going into like more brawly, self-reliant tanks, and then what I call selfish tanks. Winston's in solid. I almost want to put Winston in a different category, but I'm not sure where. I'm just gonna keep him in solid. Winston's solid. Pretty much, I would say right now, at the moment in the current, for the majority of players, if you're not within like top of GM, like GM1 or top 500, I would say for the majority of ranks, Winston is a pretty good pick. Anything with a shield tends to be a pretty good value. Most players can play around a shield. Acts like a second. What's it called? You can cut off heals from it. There's a lot of good value you can get just from having a shield on your team. I definitely like. I'm a Winston fan myself. Whenever I play tank, I try to play Winston when I can. I don't always get to, but when I can get away with it, I like playing Winston for sure. Ramatra is also in the solid category. Ramatra kind of offers a little bit of a hybrid between Ryan and Sigma. He doesn't quite have the damage output that Sigma does at range, but he has a longer range to help poke out like snipers and stuff, and he can do pretty well. Ramatra is one of those weird is like one of the outlier tanks in the moment where like even though he has a shield, he can bypass other tank shields, which can be valuable a lot of times. Plus his ultimate is pretty good at holding a choke or anchoring a spot, or maybe you're playing control and you're trying to like retake the point or hold the point. Yeah, Ramattra is a pretty solid pick as well. It's just most of the tanks you'll find are just matchup dependent. That's it, because there's only one tank on the team now for Overwatch 2. It's just matchup dependent for the most part. Next up, Orisa. Orisa's still solid. I would say Orisa's main strengths at the moment is primarily her Fortify, to be honest. Actually, not her Fortify, just her abilities. Her abilities in general are pretty much her main aspect, because, yeah, keep in mind, they nerfed her guns fall off range significantly, that if you're not in somebody's face, kind of like with Diva, you need to be in their face to actually do decent damage for the most part. The main aspect, or the main strength about Orisa is the fact that she can just survive. That's it. She's the most survivable tank in the game at the moment. It makes it really hard to kill her. Even when I'm playing Bastion or something into an Orisa, she just doesn't die. She just doesn't take a lot of damage. Having Fortify on top of the Spinning Spear to deny most damage output, you have a stun through the Javelin, and then her ultimate also lets her Fortify during it. It's just ridiculous. She's just hard to kill. She just doesn't have a lot of damage output on most maps in Season 3 at the moment. That's the only drawback for her. But like, she's a nice comfort pick, kind of like Moira is for the support roster. Orisa is kind of one of those comfort picks at the moment for tank. Zarya is probably the only one I'm putting in the niche category. She can still see play. She can still be decent. She's just a lot harder to get value out of, especially with the amount of shield tanks that are valuable to play in the game in the moment. And again, those long range maps, she just doesn't do very well in the current map pool, or in both the map pool and tank matchups. She doesn't do very well. Even against a lot of the other tanks, like, what is it? Like, basically, Zarya has to fight against shields a lot of times. She can't do much against a lot of the characters that don't have shields. Like Orisa, she has the Fortify and like 1,000 armor. I'm exaggerating there. She doesn't actually have 1,000 armor. But it's just hard for her to chip through all that armor. And then even for like the other heroes, or tanks, I should say, like Diva, Wrecking Ball, Doomfist, Queen and Hog and whatnot, they have reliable ways to just run away. Like in terms of these three, Diva, Wrecking Ball, Doomfist, they just run away from Zarya. They don't need to be within Zarya's range. They just run away from her. So it's hard for her to get value. Junker Queen has a speed buff. Just run away from her. Might be even... I'd say Junker Queen and Hog are probably one of the few tank matchups that you can maybe reliably play Zarya against, if that makes sense. Especially against the Junker Queen, because Zarya can at least cleanse the Junker Queen's bleeds and antis from her ultimate. And Junker Queen has to get a melee has to get in melee range to actually get value. So that's probably one of the better matchups for Zarya. But yeah, for the majority of the time, it's just hard to get value off Zarya at the moment in Season 3. Good in the right context, like can definitely carry in the right situation. It's just harder for those situations to actually line up and occur for you to play her reliably. Next up, Diva. Diva's also in the solid category. She's basically, if you're looking to play dive, but maybe Winston's not your pick, maybe Winston gets blown up a little too easily, you need the DM a little bit more reliably or something like that. There's a good high ground. Diva can definitely be a pick. She's still strong. Wrecking Ball. So Wrecking Ball, I have a bit of a hot take about Wrecking Ball, sort of, because Wrecking Ball can easily be in the OP section, or it can be in the average section, and it literally just depends on it just really just depends on whether or not your team ends up having of the hard counters to Wrecking Ball. And that's literally it. Sombra. Wrecking Ball doesn't have to worry about Sombra too much, just because if you look at my last tier list, I put Sombra in the niche category. And I'm a Sombra player myself. But Sombra is definitely in the niche category at the moment, and because there's not a lot of Sombra players at the moment, Wrecking Ball doesn't have to worry about her too much. So her Wrecking Ball's like main struggles are against Ana and Brigitte, I would say, because they're pretty much the main ones with CC that are going to stop Wrecking Ball in his tracks. Ana's Sleep Dart and Brigitte's boop effects, essentially, as well as being able to keep the team alive through her Inspire and such, and her repair packs. So I would say if the enemy team is playing like on a Brig, or even just has Brig on their team and the Brig's playing the way that she's supposed to be, Wrecking Ball is on the average side. I swear to God, I'll tell you right now, every single time I play against a Wrecking Ball against me in my GM games on support, I just play Brig and we just win. Without fail, we just win. He just gets countered pretty hard in most ranks if you just have a Brig on your team. It's kind of nuts. And if you have Ana and Brig, it can be even worse, because now you have to worry about getting slept and getting booped to mess up your momentum. So it's kind of rough for Wrecking Ball. But if they don't have the Brig, or should I say the Brig's not playing the way she's supposed to be, Wrecking Ball can be an absolute menace for sure. Okay. So, and let's just assume that maybe the Ana isn't hitting the sleep darts either. Wrecking Ball can be an absolute menace. So as a compromise, I'm going to put Wrecking Ball in the solid category. I would say the majority of players, from my experience, Wrecking Ball is probably more on the average side though. Just because of the fact that Wrecking Ball mostly becomes a menace when you actually know what you're doing on Wrecking Ball. The problem that I see with most players in the community, though, for most ranks, is that they just don't know how to play Wrecking Ball. That's the thing. I'll see so many, like even when I'm playing tank and DPS, which are a lot lower elo than my support, I'll see Wrecking Balls and they're not doing anything. They'll roll on by and they'll boot my team, but that's it. They don't follow up. They don't try and like kill somebody. They'll just roll on through and boot people and thinking they're getting value. And we're just like, oh, okay. And we just ignore him. We just go through the rest of the team and we win. It's pretty bad. So I'm putting him in the solid category though, just because if you're playing him the way he needs to be, he's a solid pick. But for the majority of players, realistically, he's an average pick. So if that makes sense. And then if he doesn't have the counters to him, he's an OP pick. So he's definitely a little bit all over the spectrum. Next to Doomfist. Doomfist, in my opinion, is probably the most broken tank at the moment. I legitimately struggle against Doomfist in every single role. As a tank, I don't know how to handle him that well. The only counter I have to Doomfist right now, when I play tank, my tank is diamond at the moment, by the way, is to play hog. So I can hook him whenever he tries to block or kill one of my backline. I can hook him out of it and mess up his cooldown rotations and stuff. And I can try and reliably burst them down. His powered up punch is absolutely broken. The hitbox on the thing is insane. It's just ridiculous. I have a clip of me literally being on the second on Midtown, okay? The hybrid map where there's like the fire truck as the cart. It goes under that bridge in the second point. I literally have a clip of me standing on that bridge. Doomfist is on the ground. He does his powered up punch. He goes under me, but he still hits me above him. And I'm like, what? I'm not even near this guy, and I got hit by that thing. The hitbox is stupid. He takes almost no damage from his block, too, because he negates 90% of damage. Dude's a menace. Dude is an absolute menace if you know what you're doing on Doomfist. Absolutely broken in my opinion. Junker Queen, I'm actually putting Junker Queen at an average. I don't think Junker Queen is a very good tank at the moment. Simply because of the fact that she's a selfish tank. That's the best way to put it. She's a selfish tank. The only maps I think Junker Queen can be good at are control. And that's because of the fact that you have to play on the control point. There's a lot of corners and nooks and crannies that you can actually reliably play melee range at for Queen. And she's a little bit more self-survivable compared to Reinhardt. But the only thing I think is that more often than not, you can just play Reinhardt instead of Junker Queen. Like, yeah, why? The only time I could see somebody playing Junker Queen over Reinhardt is if maybe they're not getting enough heals, so they can survive a little bit better with the self heals. But I don't know. I just feel like this is slippery slope because, like, at least with Reinhardt, you have a shield to protect yourself until you get heals. But with Junker Queen, you don't have any protection really. You have your shout to give you a little bit of extra health at most. But you don't have any protection aside from that. So like it's easier for you to get damaged in the first place. I don't know. I don't like Junker Queen right now. I don't think she's a very good pick. I'm okay with it on control, but any other map type, I don't think she's very good. I think she can be okay when you're playing on attack on other map types. Map modes, I should say. But please, for the love of God, don't play Junker Queen on defense on on non-control map modes. She's just not a good pick on defense. In my GM games, it throws me absolutely insane when I'm playing like escort or something, or hybrid, and we have a Junker Queen on defense, and I'm like, you're practically throwing. Like, what are you doing? And it's always the tank players that only play Junker Queen, Doomfist, Wrecking Ball, and that is it, or Roadhog. Like, it's basically all the selfish tanks. They only know how to play selfish tanks. I swear to God. Yeah, no, yeah, I'm gonna just leave it there. I think Junker Queen's on the average side of things. She definitely, compared to all the other tanks, she lacks the most. Hog, I actually think Hog is better than people give him credit for. To be honest, I'm gonna put Hog on the average side as well, though, too. Just because of the fact that he, without a Kiriko, kind of like with Junker Queen, without a Kiriko to cleanse you in case you get purpled, you can kind of get countered quite a bit. You're still susceptible to the sleep darts and stuff too. Discord is an absolute menace right now, and these two don't really have reliable ways to avoid the Discord or stay alive through the Discord. At least all these other tanks, shield tanks, can just block even when they're discorded. These guys are mobile enough. Doomfist, Diva, Wrecking Ball, they're mobile enough that they can kind of get out of the way quickly if they get discorded. These two don't really have any mobility, really, for the most part. Junker Queen's heals, self-heals, are not the greatest in my opinion. Hog at least has a better chance because he has the breather. He takes 50% less damage from the breather, and he heals himself 300 HP. So he has a better job surviving the Discord at least, but yeah, he's going to get blown up. Hog, I think, is still a decent pick against Doomfist if you have a Kiriko on your team. And he still does a huge amount of damage. He doesn't have the one-shot really anymore as reliably, but I think he's still pretty good. At the moment, though, I don't think he's the best matchup against most tanks. So anyways, that's it for today's tank tier list, guys. Go ahead, let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below, especially any if any GM tank players are out there. I would love to hear your opinions on this in particular. This is, again, just coming from my experience as a support main in my GM support lobbies. So without further ado, I'll see you guys in the next video. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it. I'll probably be streaming around the time this video comes out. But other than that, I will see you guys later. Peace.